Perfect. And whether you're joining us later or you're here now and you want to have access to that recording and the presentation, we'll leave our contact details later so you can reach out to our team and we can share it with you, okay? So thank you everyone for joining today. We are going to be covering quite a topic, more specifically the temporary measures that IRCC, the Government of Canada, has put in place for Lebanese nationals given the situation in Lebanon. So we're going to be covering both outside and inside Canada applications, meaning we have, let's say we have family members who are outside Canada. How can we help them bring them to Canada? We'll check requirements, document checklists, the applications that they can qualify for. And then we'll also touch on measures that were just recently announced for those who are already in Canada with temporary residency status and types of applications that the government has put in place for these applicants, okay? So we're gonna cover those two main topics today. So how do we get our family back in Lebanon here through temporary residence visas, and then also what are the options available once they come here or for those who are already here temporarily in Canada. We're gonna leave enough time for a Q&A so you can ask as many questions as you want, and hopefully we can leave with informative information today that can help us bring our loved ones here. So I'll start with a very quick introduction. I'll just actually skim through it. My name is Maria Garces. I'm an RCIC, Regulated Canadian Immigration Consultant, and I've been with Incubate for over 5 years now. I am quite familiarized with economic immigration class, foreign worker, temporary residents, etc. And I have had the privilege of working with a lot of Lebanese clients over the past 5 years. So I do really feel for what's happening right now. And this is just the least we can do to help and hopefully try to, like I said, bring your loved ones here, or if you're in Lebanon, hopefully to bring you here to Canada. And this is our principal consultant. Some of you, most of you may know him or have heard of him, Mr. Basil Sauter, also an RCIC. He's the founder of Incubate and has been working in the immigration field, both US and Canada, for over 10 years now. So he's quite an expert on all immigration topics. And yeah. This is our lovely team. The reason we like to show this slide is to prove or to show you guys that we all came from different backgrounds, different countries, different educations, and even different status coming to Canada. And in a way or another, we found our way for permanent residency all the way to citizenship. And what we want to transmit or come to say with this is that there is a pathway for everyone, whether you want immigration or just temporary residence. We're here to help you find that solution and to tailor the advice to your specific circumstances. We have 3 licenses in-house, meaning that we can represent you all across Canada, including at a provincial, at a federal level, as well as Quebec. So whether in the long run you need support in any other additional provincial application, we'll be happy to do so, and just rest assured that we do have the needed licenses. Just an FYI, you do not have to do any application with a representative. You can do applications to IRCC completely on your own, but if you ever feel like you need help, you need assistance, or your case is complicated, make sure that the help that you search for is licensed and they are authorized to do so, okay? We have 4 offices, our biggest one being in Toronto, although 99% of our services, we deliver them nowadays online, so we can assist you from anywhere, wherever you are. And like I said, we have over 10 years of experience in the industry. We have worked with many, many nationalities, from clients all around the world, as well as with Canadian organizations and Canadian institutions. So we have quite some knowledge on, like I said, mainly economic based immigration, anything from temporary foreign workers, students, visitors, all the way to skilled workers and provincial nominee programs. So we bring expertise, we bring that experience, the knowledge, and the skill set that, like I said, if you are looking to get that support, we're here for you. And lastly, we do offer services in these different languages. I unfortunately do not speak Arabic, so I apologize from now, but we do have team members that do so. So if you ever require that type of language in our service, definitely let us know, as well as English or French. All right, so we're gonna get started with the first part, focusing on, like I said, the TRV, the temporary residence visa. So very important, and full disclosure here, this presentation, the focus is for those who have family members in Canada, or if you're a family, or if you are a Canadian citizen or permanent resident in Canada and want to help support your Lebanese family come here. Okay, so it's important that we look at it from this lens, from this perspective, because it will definitely play in our favor when selecting what we call the purpose of visit. And again, is what we focused on the tailored checklist and the steps that we're going to talk about. If you are in a situation where you're in Lebanon and you don't have any family in Canada, we can still talk about options that you can come. The type of application would be the same, a temporary residence visa, if what you're coming is to visit. Obviously, if you have plans of coming to study or coming to work, then you would have to look at those respective requirements. But if what we're looking is to apply for a TRV, in terms of documents, in terms of steps, it would be very similar. We would just have to really narrow down that purpose of visit to Canada, since it would no longer be, come visit or reunite with a family member here. But if that's your case, let us know on the chat, and then we can go back to that at the end of the session. All right, so for those of you who are not familiarized with it, a TRV, it's a temporary residence visa. It's a travel document that will allow us to come to Canada as visitors. When I say up to 6 months, it means that once you enter Canada, you can stay for up to 180 days or 6 months, or the duration established by the officer. Sometimes we will get random checks. Officers will ask us questions, and we may get a random stamp that says that we can only stay for 2 months instead. That supersedes the 6-month rule that generally applies to visitors to Canada, okay? What we're seeing right now is that the government is prioritizing or processing faster those TRVs for Lebanese nationals with family in Canada. Again, it's important to mention when we submit the application that we're coming to visit or reunite with our family member, provide that proof of relationship and any additional documents that will support the application from that relationship perspective. Like many applications, it is an online application, no original documents, so we can submit everything to my IRCC's account. And like I said, it's important that the purpose of visit is to come to Canada is to reunite and to visit our family members. So we'll talk about what documents we can demonstrate here. Granted for up to 10 years or up to discretion of the officer. There have been recent changes to the issuance of temporary residence visas. What this means is that, generally speaking, and this doesn't apply to every case, but generally speaking, applicants for TRVs, for temporary residence visas, would get either 10 years or up to the duration of their passports. There have been certain cases where they only get a one entry, meaning that they can only come to Canada once, and then they'll need to get a new one, or for shorter time, just up to the discretion of the officer. But the general rule was 10 years. There's been new instructions issued from IRCC officers that indicate that TRVs could be granted for just a single entry, depending on the purpose of our visit, or multiple entry if requested and if backed with those documentation and our application all together. So this is just another important point of view of why including the family reunification or the family visit in our application is key to perhaps trying to get that longer duration of the TRV. What we would be requesting here is the fact that we have some close family member, relative living in Canada, and we would want to come to visit them every once in a while. We'll need that temporary residence visa granted for more than just one single entry. But again, up to discretion of the officer. All we can do from our side is try to maximize those chances and include supporting documents that make it a strong application. Next one up here. Let's focus on documents. We have 2 slides for document checklist. We'll start with the general ones. This is probably the most generic or basic document checklist for TRVs. There may be additional documents depending on your circumstances, but I'm going to say a good amount of the time would be this list of documents that we see here. So we'll have the application form and the family forms. These are forms that you have to fill on your own or with the help of your family member if needed. Make sure that the information is accurate and make sure that you validate it and sign it properly as instructed. You will see at the end of the form that the instructions are there. So just make sure to follow them so that your form is complete. Valid passport. We need a passport that's valid for at least 6 months. Otherwise, the application will not be processed. So make sure that we have that validity. Or if you submit it with a 6 months validity or less, make sure that you will be renewing your passport as soon as possible and including it in your application so that when it gets processed, you have more than 6 month valid passport. We'll need a digital photo. We'll need proof of funds. We're going to talk about proof of funds in the next slide because I know this is a hot topic. So we have a slide on how to show these funds, so don't worry. And then the rest of documents are more so what we call optional, but from our perspective, quite mandatory, especially for TRV's applications. We're really trying to prove to the officer that we will be returning back home and that the purpose of our visit to Canada is temporarily. We have to remember that it is a TRV, a temporary residence visa, and our intentions to come to Canada have to be temporarily for that trip, for that visit. Hence the importance of including supporting documents that will prove that we will be coming back to Lebanon. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a second, but something that's very important as well is that invitation letter from our family member in Canada. This is a letter that needs to be written by them or just one family member, along with a copy of their ID and, like I said, proof of relationship. Proof of relationship could be through birth certificates or it could be through the family extract. So either of those work. Just make sure that you have it translated by a sworn translator or translated and then notarized in the notary public. Okay, and then other relevant documents such as ties, we'll talk about those in the next few slides as well. Like you see for the majority, I mean, there's some what we call staple and mandatory documents, but there is some room for us to build a strong application and a unique application to your case. And that's the whole point of this type of application. Oops, that was the wrong one. There we go. All right, so for the proof of funds, we need to have available funds. There's no minimum benchmark or there's no minimum amount that it's set for TRVs, just like there is for study permits. But it needs to make sense and needs to be consistent with our travel plans. And if you're planning to come travel and stay here for 3-4 months, we're gonna need definitely more funds than just $5,000. If we're coming, let's say, for a 1 to 2 week visit, from experience, 5,000 tends to be accepted for a single applicant. And then again, this changes if we're coming with our family and depending on how many family members join us. So definitely use at least the 5,000 Canadian dollars as a minimum, and if more, then better. okay? We need to prove those funds through checking, savings, or investments account, preferably checking or savings. And if it's investment, we need to show that the funds are liquidable. And sponsors are accepted if we have a family member who wants to financially sponsor us and help us financially for this trip. Make sure that they are close relatives and that we include a letter of sponsorship from that person confirming that they will be lending us those funds without expecting anything in return. And then the proof of relationship to that sponsor, again, a close relative. And the sponsor can be inside or outside Canada. If we're proving bank statements, we need to show 4 months worth of bank statements to show to the officer that the funds are readily available and have not been transferred solely for demonstration purposes. So we want to show accumulation of those funds. If you do have mostly cash, which I know it's the situation for many in Lebanon, try to either get a sponsor who can show a bank account, or in this case, explain to the officer the situation. But I'm telling you, IRCC does not take cash as a proof of fund. We're going to have to either find a sponsor or just proof any other bank account that we have, even if the funds are not accessible at the time. That would be better than just showing the cash that, it's altogether impossible to show. It can be in any currency as long as we provide a conversion document. So you can just go to either the Bank of Canada or xc.com, any other conversion site that has official rates, and just do a print screen of the total amount that we have available to the conversion of Canadian dollars. Okay, and then the last 2 sets for TRVs. And again, what we're trying to prove here is that we're coming to Canada solely for the purpose of visiting a family member, and we will return back to Lebanon once we complete the visit. So first of all, invitation letter. Like I said, this would be very beneficial for those who have family members in Canada. We refer to this as the host. So either you're a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. If your family member Canada is here on a temporary resident status, it will not be as relevant because it is hard to demonstrate their residence in Canada, but still consider it, and again, look at it from the view that we're looking at this. So considering that they will be Canadian citizens or permanent residents as well. So also proof of their status in Canada will be a plus, so a copy of their PR card or their or their passport. And then in that letter, we want to highlight the visits, the details of the visit, the relationship, how long you've known each other, how close you are to each other, if there's been any previous travels, if they will be helping you with accommodation, are you going to stay in their house, no, etc. Financial support as well, if applicable, if they're going to help us financially, also provide this. And it must be notarized in Canada. Okay, again, this is the letter from the host, from your family member here. Like I said, we also need to provide that proof of relationship. So not only describe it in the letter, but also provide the document. This could be through, like I said, birth certificates, family extracts, and we need to provide both a copy of the original and the translation. And this is gonna be applicable to all documents that we submit, copy of the original and copy of the translation. And okay, lastly on the, let me see here, on the regular TRV. So other documents, these are just example of other documents you can consider, but again, this is dependent on every case and their circumstances. So for example, if you're employed in Lebanon, provide proof of employment, prove that you have a job to return to, so through a letter and through pay stubs. If you are a student and you're still completing your studies, so proof of your partial transcripts and a letter of enrollment. If you have previous visas and previous proof of travel, definitely provide it as well, because that will show that you've respected your travel authorizations in the past, and you will be doing so here in Canada too. and then your personal letter. So besides the host letter that we have from our family member in Canada, your own intentions to travel and purpose letter, where you explain why you want to come, and just sort of summarize everything that you are submitting in this application in terms of documents. Lastly, if there's any if there's any letters of explanations that need to be included, let's say from a previous refusal or any further clarification that needs to be made in any of the documents, you can do so through a letter of explanation as well and submit it under the client information exhibit. You're going to have a blank exhibit on your application document checklist online, where you're going to be able to upload any letter or any sort of document that you consider relevant to your application. All right. Now, for those of you who have parents in Lebanon, excuse me for a second, there's another type of visitor visa. It's called a super visa, and super visa allows for parents and grandparents. So let's say you are a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident in Canada, and you have your parents or grandparents back in Lebanon, and you want them to come here. The way to do so would be through a super visa. A super visa, it's a type of visitor visa, but it has a couple enhancements from a regular visitor visa. It allows travel to Canada for up to 5 years, so meaning that they can come and stay in Canada as visitor for up to 5 years without having to leave. Again, their status will be as visitors, but the length that they can stay is much, much, much longer. Like I said, only for parents and grandparents of Canadian citizens and PR. There are minimum financial requirements that we need to meet. In this case, it's not from the applicant, but it's from the host, so from the family member in Canada. We're gonna see the table in the next slide. We need to have health insurance for at least 1 year that covers at least 100,000 Canadian dollars in emergency coverage. And we're gonna need as well a medical examination done by a panel physician back in Lebanon or wherever they are. Like we said, it can be granted for up to 10 years or the validity of the passport. Now, for the host, we need to, this gets updated every year. This is what it is as of recently. We do it based on the LICO, low income cutoff, and based on your family unit, the size of your family. When calculating the size, you need to take into account the host family. So let's say you're a Canadian citizen or permanent resident in Canada, and you have a spouse and 2 kids. That family is 4, and then you're inviting your parents to come, so both of them. So that would bring up the number to 6 persons. So then we would have to look at 6, and we need to have a minimum income in the household income of $69,834. This amount can be on your own as a host or can be combined with your spouse if you have a spouse as well, okay? And this has to be proved through your latest notice of assessment, T4, or employment reference letter, pay stubs, official documents that prove that you're employed and you are indeed making that income. And then lastly, for those of you who are not familiarized with a TRV, this is what it would look like, or at least the old version of it. It will say at some point whether it's a multiple or a single entry, and then the validity of it. So this will look the same for regular TRVs or super visas, and this is what will allow you to travel to Canada. Once you come to Canada, if you decide to apply for any other type of work permit, you always need to ensure that this document on your passport remains valid, okay? You always have to have valid your TRV on your passport and any other document that you want to apply for if you want to change your status to worker, student, etc. Which brings us to the next slide here. All right, so now we're gonna cover the temporary measures for Lebanese nationals and family of Lebanese nationals inside Canada. So this is the most recent one announced and similar to other measures that we've seen for other countries. And it goes as follows. So they have, like I said, they have issued them for those who have been affected by the current situation in Lebanon. The first thing to consider is that it allows for those who are in Canada and again, not if we're back in Lebanon, we cannot apply for these measures. We first have to apply for the TRV and come to Canada. This is only for those who are in Canada, okay? So these are fee exempt applications, meaning that we don't have to pay a processing fee. They're free from IRCC. And there are 4 different types of applications that we can opt for. We can apply for an open work permit, and sorry for the typo here, but it would be granted for up to 2 years. Open work permit means that you will be switching your status to worker and you will have authorization to work under a work permit for the validity of up to 2 years. You can work for any employer as many hours as you want. There's no limitations, it's open. You can also apply for a study permit, okay? You will still need documents for that study permit, like letter of acceptance, etc. But it is fee exempt and you can apply it from within Canada, which is a big, big advantage, okay? And then if you're already in Canada, either as a student, as a worker, or as a visitor, you can extend your temporary residency status in Canada to any of those status, also fee exempt. Lastly, if you are inadmissible to Canada, and I hope this doesn't apply to many of you, but if it does, you are also eligible to apply for a temporary residence permit. Just to note that a TRP, a temporary residence permit, is very different from a TRV. A TRV is what we want. A TRP is what we may be granted if we are inadmissible to Canada. So we're not going to touch much on that. Now, we have until July 31st of next year to apply for these measures. So whether you already have your TRV and you're considering coming to Canada, you can do so, I would say, before then. So then you have time to apply for any of these measures. Or if you're already here, but you still don't know what to do, you still have some time to submit this application. Now, these applications will be submitted online, and they're pretty straightforward in terms of documents. They would mainly be asked for ID documents, photo, the mandatory documents that we saw earlier, along with the forms. And because it's inside Canada, there's no really need to demonstrate our ties or our intentions to return to Lebanon. There's no dual intent evaluation that applies here. So we just focus on the basic and main documents. Now, who's eligible for this? They've created 4 different groups under this category. First one is Lebanese nationals who are in Canada with valid temporary residence status. So this, like I said, this could be visitor, this could be student, or this could be worker. Another group will be non-Lebanese family members, and we'll define what a family member is, of Canadian citizens or permanent residents. Family members are spouse or common law partner, dependent child, or dependent child of our dependent child, meaning our grandkids. Okay, that's it. No sisters, no brothers. That's the definition that they've taken so far. So that's what we stick with. So for non-Lebanese family members of Canadian citizens, and again, this is for those who are non-Lebanese. If you're Lebanese in Canada already, you have access to this. The conditions are that you had left Lebanon, excuse me, on or after September 29th of this year, and you are in Canada with valid temporary residence status, okay? So this is for those who, again, were not Lebanese, but were living in Lebanon and have a family member in Canada who's a citizen or permanent resident. Now, for similar group, but in this case, non-Lebanese foreign nationals affected by the first generation limit on citizenship in Lebanon and their family members. Again, the definition of a family members here is a spouse, common law partner, dependent child, or the child of our dependent child. Okay. Same situation here, must have left Lebanon on or after September 29th and have to be in Canada with valid temporary residency status. So as you see, all these measures are for those who are in Canada. The last group here is people who left Lebanon, helped by the Canadian government on or after September 29th of 2024. So whether we fall under any of those relationships or not, the main common ground here is that you have to be in Canada in order to be able to apply for any of these measures. Okay. And with that, I'll bring it to the Q&A section. Like I said, we'll leave the contact details in the next slide, so you can have access to either the presentation, the recording, or just ask any questions to our solutions team. And for now, what I'll do, let me see. Okay, yeah, feel free to type your questions on the chat, and then we'll start reading them and answering them as we go, okay? I'll give a few minutes because I know they take a bit to answer. Thank you. Okay, I see questions here. Perfect, thank you. So first question, if Lebanese but living outside of Lebanon and having family in Canada, do same measures apply? Yes and no. So if we're talking about these measures, Samer, these ones, to apply for the open work permit study permit, as long as they have a TRV and they can come to Canada, once they're in Canada, yes, they become eligible to apply. So because they're Lebanese, they would fall under this first category, and they would be Lebanese nationals in Canada with valid temporary resident status, which visitor status is a part of. So they just need to first apply for a TRV if they don't have one, but if they have one, they can come and apply for their work permits. Okay, another one here. How much time does it take for the work permit to be issued if I have temporary residence visa and living in Canada? We don't know yet. We don't know if they're gonna do a special processing under these measures. I'm telling you, they're following regular work permit times. We're looking at least 4 to 6 months of processing, which is how long work permits are taking right now. But there's a chance that they expedite it, and we're looking at shorter processing, but just so you know, that's how long work permits are taking. Another one here. Okay, let me just open the chat here. Okay, I'm Lebanese and my wife Palestinian Lebanese refugee. We're in Canada now, and our daughter is with us, Canadian. She's 2 years old. Okay, 1 month is, I guess, but can we apply for the work permit, which I already did, and how many days is it taking? Okay, so in this case for you, again, if we fall under any of these groups, so Lebanese nationals in Canada, and again, this applies to the whole family. So if you're all as a family here, each member is seen as one of these groups. Again, if there's non-Lebanese family members, now, the only thing that we would have to confirm, Danny, is your wife's. But if she's Lebanese national, then she would apply under the first one, and the same for your dependents. Okay, so for your kid, in this case, you have a 2-year-old, then that kid would also be able to either get a visitor record or a study permit. And then if you do deliver your baby here, then that baby will be Canadian. Now, a assuming that we follow this, then yes, you can all apply. You have until July to apply. If you have already done so, you're in what's called maintained status. So even if the processing of the work permit goes beyond the allowed time that you have as a visitor, the 6 months, that is fine. You are allowed to remain here. But like I just answered, it's usually taking 4 to 6 months for regular work permits. There's a chance that they open a fast track processing for this measure, but that's how long we're seeing right now for other types of work permits. Okay. I want to know about EMPP. Can you, I don't know what you're referring to, so can you please fully write down what you mean by that, Aisha? Thank you. And next one, I would like to ask if there are any updates on other programs or policies, such as immigration program, since not all Lebanese have relatives in Canada. That's true. And many of us are facing challenging conditions. Yes, so there are no further programs or policies announced, and we can't really guess if this is going to be something that they put in place. Unfortunately, my recommendation here would be to try to come to Canada temporarily first, apply for that TRV. If it's not family, but if you have friends, perhaps with invitation letter from friends, and try through that route. But I doubt that there will be immigration programs in place. We've seen other countries, different circumstances, but same measures were issued from IRCC, and it just stick to temporary measures. So again, we can't fully disregard it, but for now, I wouldn't count on it, and I would just focus on coming on a temporary residence status and take it from there once we're here on immigration. Of course. Okay, if it takes 4 to 6 months, what should we do? What if it takes more than 6 months and we cannot stay? Right. So that's what I just mentioned, Christina, that let's retrospective here. Let's say you enter Canada September 1st. Okay, September, October, November, December, we have until March 1st because February is shorter. Let's say we apply in a month and our work permit continues processing until that date. Because we applied for the work permit while we still had valid status as a visitor, you enter into what's called maintained status. Maintained status allows you to remain in Canada while an application is in progress and a decision is being made on it. So what you can do is you can stay even if the application goes for 7, 8 months, which is unheard of, but I'm just putting you on the worst case scenario. Even if it goes to that, you can remain in Canada because you submitted your work permit application before your status expired. So you can go beyond those 6 months, okay? I know it's a long time of waiting, and I truly hope that they do fast track this for Lebanese nationals or for anyone who's applying for this measure. But rest assured that as long as you submit it while you're still a valid visitor, you can remain here until a decision is made. Okay. And this is called maintained status. I'm just gonna type it here so you have okay, another one. Okay. To apply for a TRV, is that a standard visit visa or a special visa with support of family? Not clear if you can apply for it. Oh, okay. So good questions, Mer. So a TRV is temporary residence visa. It's a visa, it's a standard visa for everyone, right? The focus of what we've talked about today is how to build that strong application for those who have family members in Canada. So in your case, if they're residing outside of Lebanon and they still want to come visit you or visit a family member in Canada, the same applies. So here we would be using the purpose of visit as family reunification, come visit for whatever special occasion or reason, or just for the summer holidays, whatever the reason could be, you have that point of contact or that person in Canada that will be your host. So it doesn't matter, this is whether you're in Lebanon, outside Lebanon, it doesn't matter in that case. What would be important though is that if they are, for example, Lebanese living in Dubai or anywhere else, they will need to show proof that they will be returning back home. So showing proof such as ties to home country, employment documents, if the kids are enrolled in school, school documents, and so on and so forth. But the type of application is just a visit visa. We're just enhancing it with support documents from the family. Okay. More questions? In the meantime, oops, I am going to leave here our contact details. If you have not been in touch with us yet, you can reach out to connect@incubate.ca. Again, we can share the recording of today's sessions, presentation, or to our WhatsApp. And then let us know what your questions are. Our team will guide you one way or the other and inform you which way we can help you. But yeah, those are our details. And again, you can reach out to my colleague Gustavo. He'll be able to share the recording if that's what you're looking for. I will give a few more seconds. Oh yes, thank you, Samer. Once in the country, then one can apply for work permits and transfer. That's correct. So once we're here, so once we come on the TRV, once we come as visitors, then these measures would apply. And they will be able to apply, so work permits for up to 2 years, study permits, or just the extension of a visitor as they wish. And then once we have that work permit, we look into finding a job, taking language tests, and then we move to a complete different topic, which is permanent residence. We'll be doing a webinar on permanent residence soon. Just stay close with our social media because we will be announcing it soon. And we will be covering that. So how to utilize that work permit to for a more permanent residency way, like you mentioned, Summer. Okay. So you're most welcome. Thank you. Perfect. So if I don't see more questions, I think we can wrap up. Thank you very much all for joining. I hope it was an informative session. Like I said, feel free to reach out to our team and stay tuned. We might do another session like this. If not, definitely the permanent residency one. And hopefully we can help you and your family in the future. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your week and take care. We'll stay in touch. Bye-bye.